It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. Before we get started, please hit that share button so we can educate more patriots around the country. All right, we're kicking things off with Vicki McKenna and CultureCast, and we've reached peak irony in this hipster doofus culture of ours when it comes to these COVID freaks. We have an unbelievable story. The video is just unbelievable of two old biddies wearing masks in a elevator confronting an African-American fella who's not wearing a mask. I gotta just play this.
Get out.
Get out.
Yo, stop.
Get out. Get out.
What you guys doing? Get out.
Get out.
What you guys doing? What's wrong with
Get out.
you?
Don't touch me.
Don't you have
Do
kids?
not touch me.
Get out.
Do not touch me.
Get out. I'm not touching you.
Do not
Oh,
touch
did you just hit me? Did you just hit me?
You just hit me.
You just hit me? You too?
Black Lives Matter.
Yo, this is racist. Wow.
Get out. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives
Black
Matter.
Lives Matter.
Stop. Yo, stop. Stop recording me. I don't know you. Yo, you need to stop.
Get
No,
out.
I'm not getting out. I was here
Yes, you
first.
are.
I'm sorry, but if ever the phrase, I'm going to smack a if that phrase, that hey, it's not my phrase, it's big in the African-American community, if that phrase ever had utility, I'd like to think it was right now.
Well, I gotta say, if he would have taken a swing at one of them, he would have been arrested for assault at least.
Well, he was
disorderly conduct.
He was assaulted by one of them.
100%. And you know what? And kudos to that man for having the self-control to just, he took it. You know, what he could have done is he could have blasted one of them, and frankly, most people would have said you deserved it. But he had a lot of self-control, and so I applaud that guy.
He was somewhere between laughing and being really pissed off. You couldn't tell.
Yeah, you could hear him laugh.
They were like little granny zombies, just bouncing around in the elevator with it. It was weird.
Get out. It was crazy though. It's like bad sketch comedy. It's sketch comedy that's so bad you would never laugh at it. The only way it's funny is because it's real. But it says something, Duke, and that is that the COVIDian Karens will not go gently. They will not go gently, and they are still demanding that everybody worship alongside them in the Church of COVID and participate in the Eucharist of the mask and the vax. And if you don't, they will, they want you in jail. They want to maim your career. They want you dead. Oftentimes, you go cruise around Twitter for a little while and look at all of the blue check left wingers calling for or enthusiastically enjoying announcements of dead unvaccinated people. It's just, I don't know what's happened to our culture. It's all gone so sideways so fast that I just sometimes wish we could laugh and drink.
I really love the analogy with all the ritual of the Catholic Church. You forgot one, I think, though, and don't forget the last rites, where every death is blessed as a COVID death, no matter what kills you.
Well, and the last rites include cheering on your demise.
Exactly.
Well, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. If I hear that one more time, I might actually throw a swing.
I go back to those ladies, and the thing that gets me about that is, you and I both have long contended that all this Black Lives Matter garbage is just a way for white liberals to keep their positions, to keep their power, not to have to give up any of their own jobs, right? While they're lecturing the other white people of the world of their evil. Somehow it's like a get out of white free card, right? To play the black. And at the very end, when those ladies, I think it began to dawn on them that this poor black guy was feeling cornered and assaulted, they just started Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. And they were like bouncing around on the camera.
Bad noise toys.
It was like COVID Pac-Man. They were just like those little ghosts that hover around you. For God's sake.
They are blacker than he is. That's what you have to
exactly
understand.
Right.
Is that he's of the wrong. He has committed a thought crime. He is out in public without a mask. He refuses to accede to their insane demands. He will not kneel before the altar of St. Fauci and accept his Eucharist of the vaccine or the mask. And so he's not black any longer, because remember, if you disagree with the left, everything's racist. That's their theory of everything. So if you disagree with them wanting to wrap your 2-year-old's face in a filthy, bacteria-infested piece of cloth and not learn, proper speech and social interaction, you're a racist. If you don't support mandatory vaccinations of a product that's actually been shown to be harmful to many people, you're a racist. And so A black man is a racist, and two little old white biddies are blacker than the black guy.
And in any other instance, we've had grandma Karens like this doing this. Every instance, they have been fired, they've been doxxed, people find out where they work and they've been removed from their jobs. The companies give these elaborate, we will not have people like this working in our offices. Now, we'll see, because COVID is the trigger. I'll be interested to see who wins this, the zombie grandmas or the poor, assaulted, actual black dude.
I want to know what I say. I bet you they're retired, and I'm just going to throw it out there. I bet you we have some retired teachers or librarians. One of those two.
I love the teacher. It sounds exactly what a teacher would do. Black Lives Matter.
Exactly.
After the break, we got another COVID outrage to share.
Are you a fan of the show? Consider joining the Patriot Club. Your tax-deductible donation of $99 a year keeps us going. Simply visit patriotclub.us. That's patriotclub.us to pledge your support and receive our signature tumbler as a token of our appreciation. We've got much more to come. Stay with us.
All right, back again with Vicki McKenna for the second segment of CultureCast. Well, I'm pretty sure it's going to be impossible to top what we did in the first segment, but we do have an interesting story about how driven to hysterics used to reserve that word in the Victorian period for out of control women, hysteria. Now it's the COVIDians, right? Professor suggests that anti-maskers should be hit by drunk drivers. Go ahead and take a look at the quote here. Why is it from Professor Ed Fuller? Why is it a parent's right to endanger the lives of other people's kids and of teachers? Maybe people wearing masks should just drive drunk and speed through the neighborhoods of pro-COVID parents as a way of exercising their free rights.
So now we randomly cheer on the death of people we dislike and disagree with, because you're not allowed to disagree in this country any longer. It doesn't matter if it's COVID, if it's BLM, if it's CRT, if it's open borders policy, if it's exploding inflation. If you disagree with the prevailing crafted progressive narrative, then you deserve to die. You know, Trump supporters deserve to die. Conservatives deserve to die. People who want to see Roe versus Wade overturned deserve to die. People who don't want to wear masks deserve to die. People with natural immunity deserve to die. It's crazy. But maybe you can help me out. Where do people learn to respond to disagreement with prayers for death? Duke, well, I mean, this is something new in our culture.
It is, and it is a consequence of this attitude that's been going around about 20 years now, and it was centralized in the universities and the schools, that to be liberal is to be right. You don't have to defend it. You don't have to argue for it. There is no logical argument, however profound, will undo the virtue of your worldview. And so what do you expect when you tell people that their worldview is omniscient, where they're infallible like the Pope? Right? That just simply for being progressive, that turns into hate real quick. And it gets even, I think, Vicki, a little deeper than that. We had that horrible drive-by murder here that made international news, but the news didn't really want to talk about it.
For 5 minutes, yeah.
And what was the little town here in Milwaukee, was that?
It was in Waukesha.
Waukesha, that's right.
Not even a small town, a pretty large city.
Right, but it was a blip, right? Because you had an African-American who did exactly what this professor said, drove into a group of people just having a fun time at Christmas and run them over, right? You could make the argument to punish them for being white and happy and Christmassy. And this professor, by linking onto this, I mean, he's really engaging, I think. He's sharing the idea of a particular kind of terrorism that the left, we knew that the left didn't care about those people at Waukesha, and he seems to be doing the same thing here, right? Maybe, doesn't this give us the right to just drive drunk, he says, into the neighborhoods of these anti-vaxxers and run them over as a new kind of justice? He sees, this professor, what happened in Waukesha as complete justice for white people.
Well, I think as well, we have the left is thoroughly dehumanized, thoroughly undone the humanity and the respect for us as individual human beings. It's been undone. And so if you're no better than a rat, or you're no better than, you don't have a God to tell you that it's not okay to dismiss people as subhuman or lesser than worthy of protection under the law, It's pretty easy to justify doing all kinds of things. We have history littered, as a matter of fact, with people who had so dehumanized their enemies that they justified all manner of hell raining down on them. And yet the same people who are doing this are the same people who follow in the footsteps and lurk in the shadow of Stalin and other noteworthy communists or fascists. But if you point that out to them, you're a racist, you're a white supremacist.
I go back to Youngkin in Virginia. When you had a Democrat as the governor and he wrote these mask mandates, all the schools viciously enforced them because you got to follow the law, right? And now comes Youngkin, who uses his power as governor to do away with them, and now they're suspending kids for showing up without masks. Again, is this a situation, do you think, where you could rightly send the National Guard into those schools and force those kids into the classrooms?
Sure, you could, but who's got the guts to do it? Maybe Youngkin's got the guts to do it. Maybe Abbott's got the guts to do it. I bet you DeSantis, if anything like that were to happen, would have the guts to do it. Of course you can do that. And make a stand. Take a stand. Make a statement about what's right, the rule of law, but no one on the conservative side in any kind of number has done that in a way that allows people to recognize there's an alternative to this debate. By the way, one other thing, when you've got those progressives saying it's the law, you got to follow the law, and then of course when it's their turn to follow the law that they don't like, then it's an attack on democracy, or it's an attack on public health, or it's an attack on something. To be liberal is to give yourself permission never to have to be logical, never to have to be consistent, never to have to, reject hypocrisy or monitor and check your own hypocrisy. You can just say whatever comes to mind, whatever makes you feel good, and it is right by virtue of the fact that you are the most virtuous because you have anointed yourself so.
Today's show is sponsored by Clean Start Hand Sanitizer. For an odor-free foam hand sanitizer that lasts 2 hours and provides 19 refills, visit freedomproject.com/clean. That's KLEEN to order yours today.
All right, it's time for Trending Left. We've compiled some of the craziest social media content making waves across the internet for your viewing pleasure or heartburn, however you look at it. We start at West Running Brook Middle School, where a school nurse believes mask wearing is so super important and serious that she decided to perform a rap song for the kids. Enjoy the beats.
Good morning, West Running Brook Middle School. Please excuse this public service announcement by your nurse, Snoop Dogg Walker. After my first rap saw some improvement. Been told if I rap again, it will start a movement. Here I am, doing my part. Now it's time for you all to be smart. Many have slacked off and COVID is ramped up. Keep the masks off, and even when asking, what's up? The masks do not protect me or you unless one over your nose, stuck like glue. Please don't make us use disciplinary action. Wear them right and bring on the satisfaction. Let it be clear, we want you here. So, wear your masks over your nose. Say it with me now. Wear your masks over your nose.
Besides the cringeworthy video, we also have a statement that was sent out by West Running Brook Middle School about masks. And basically it lectures the kids that unless you wear your masks all the time and wear them perfectly, you're going to have to spend detention time after school with that very same rapping nurse. Boy, I gotta tell you, that if there was one thing that would scare me into mask compliance. All right, meanwhile, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, teacher Drew is having a great gender day. One of his 4-year-olds actually remembered his pronouns. And you can see here from his post on Instagram, guess why teacher Drew is having a great gender day? I mean, look at this fit. Sweater over button-up, they, them necklace, and my locks looking fresh. Y'all wasn't ready for this. But the bigger reason I'm having a great gender day is because one of my 4-year-old students correctly gendered me. Yes, a 4-year-old child remembered the brainwashing that I gave them. Isn't it stunning how preschool now is not about napping or chocolate milk or playing tag with the other kids? How do you know your kid's progressing as a Preschool kid, 3 and 4-year-old, well, they get the genders right. Speaking of things that don't belong in school, a colorful teacher has released a video with some tips on how other educators can make their classrooms super duper friendly for all 500 genders. Let's learn.
So here are some ways to help support your LGBTQ students with very minimal effort. Step 1 is to normalize pronouns in your classroom. So a great way to do this is at the beginning of your class to use pronouns in an icebreaker activity. So ask for your students' pronouns regardless of their identity. This can be really helpful for LGBTQ students, and I also share my own pronouns as well as have them in my email signature, and I made sure they're in my TikTok bio. Another great and helpful thing to do is to switch up your greetings. So I like to avoid gendered language when I talk to my students, so I don't use words like guys or ladies and gentlemen. Instead, I'll choose terms like folks, or my students really like guys, gals, and non-binary pals. They really relate to that, and sometimes I even refer to them as different animals, just to keep it light and fun.
So you won't use gendered language, but you want them to use pronouns. I guess that means you're not going to let kids, or you're not going to be happy when kids used gendered pronouns. And finally, we end with a little bit of contradiction from a non-binary student who says teachers who force students to reveal their pronouns are not cool. Wait, I just thought from the blue-haired girl that this is a wonderful way to make LGBTQ kids feel good. Well, according to our young man here, it's just not cool.
So I just had a Zoom meeting for a class, and the professor told us all to change our names and put our pronouns next to our names. She made us do it. And as a non-binary student, let me just say, if you are a professor, please do not do that. Encourage your students to do that, that's fine, but don't make them. Because while yes, it is nice to normalize introducing yourself with your pronouns, and it can be very gender affirming for your trans-binary people in the class, but as a non-binary student, that stressed me the f*** out. Because I have to make the decision of, do I put my actual pronouns next to my name and out myself as non-binary to this entire class of strangers? Or do I lie about my pronouns and be dysphoric about it the entire time I'm in this class?
Silly me, I thought that all this transgender garbage was retrograde and anti-science, but you gotta give it to that young man. It's the first pink comb-over in human history. It's time for some real education. All week long, we've been looking at a modest proposal by Jonathan Swift. It's a great piece of satire. So convincing as satire was, the satire was that people actually believed that what Swift's answer to the problem of Irish poor children was to sell them as babies as if they were chickens or turkeys to be eaten. We looked for the first 3 days of this week, the first 3 lessons of this week. We talked about how in order to write great satire, you really have to set the situation up very well. We looked at all the ways, before he even mentioned Swift, the plan, right, to use Irish babies to feed the population. Total satire. He had no intention to do that. He realizes that that's a horrible thing. But if you're going to ignore and let these kids die, Swift wants to get your attention. So he went to we looked at Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, how carefully he set up the believability of his story. When he gets to the meat here, where he actually lays out his proposition, people go along with it. Listen to how he finally makes his announcement about what his plan really is. Quote, "I have been assured by a very knowing American of my acquaintance in London that a young, healthy child, well-nursed, is at a year old a most delicious, nourishing, and wholesome food, whether stewed, roasted, baked, or boiled. And I make no doubt that it will equally serve in a fricassee or a ragout. A child will make 2 dishes at an entertainment for friends, and when the family dines alone, the fore or hind quarter will make a reasonable dish, and seasoned with a little pepper or salt, will be very good boiled on the 4th day, especially in winter." I mean, notice what he does. He completely glares over the taboo nature of this, the cannibalistic aspects of this, and gets right down to the nuts and bolts of how do you prepare these children to be eaten. Look at the last part of it here. "I have already computed the charge of nursing a beggar's child to be about 2 shillings per year, rags included, and I believe no gentleman would repine to give 10 full shillings for the carcass of a good fat child, which, as I have said, will make 4 dishes of excellent nutritive meat. Those who are more thrifty, as I must confess the times require, may flay the carcass, the skin of which, artificially dressed, will make admirable gloves for ladies and summer boots for fine gentlemen. So even when he gets to the point, after he's done all his work to make the situation seem so serious, is to tackle this as if there were no moral scruples. If he was simply talking about a new set of recipes for a new exotic meat brought over from the New World. That's how real satire works. And it is a really important way to move people morally back to the truth and away from their preconditions. It's not surprising why the progressive left wants to kill this kind of satire, because it does its moral work by playing on the emotions, by moving people away from wrong positions and to right. The progressive left, they just want to order you what to do. This is a much more subtle and therefore more effective and more fair way of doing things.
If you have a question for Dr. Duke and Katie, please send it our way by emailing askduke@fpeusa.org.
And that's going to do it for this show. I'm Dr. Duke, and until next time, stay educated, my friends.